Hello. So I got some new books from maybe the last 2 months. The first one is Caesar's. He wrote this, The Conquest of Gaul. I think he wrote every chapter in here except for the last one. It's basically his wars in France, Switzerland, I think Britain as well, and maybe Germany. Another book by Caesar, The Civil War. This one has 3 chapters that he wrote, and I think the last 2 chapters were written by his officers or something. It's technically an incomplete book. This book is cited a lot by the person who wrote the Caesar biography. I forget his name. Essential Epidemiology. So I want to study epidemiology more formally. I've read a lot of popular science books on epidemiology, and I actually want to go through textbooks on the subject, and this book was really cheap. There's a newer edition of this book, but this book was $10, and it's basically new. There's no writing in it at all, so I had to get it. Asylums. I'm gonna go and study also a history of psychiatry or clinical psychology, because I want to get into these more niche areas of the history of things. I want to do the history of prisons as well. And Erving Goffman is a very famous theorist in sociology, / social psychology, I guess. And he has a book on asylums. I didn't know that. And this is just going to be about the social relationships that people establish as a result of being in asylums. Essays on the social situations of mental patients and other inmates. Tom Burns, Our Necessary Shadow, The Nature and Meaning of Psychiatry. I don't think this is strictly speaking a history of psychiatry, but it's going to go over psychiatry's past a little bit. It'll probably go over modern stuff. He talks a lot about psychoanalysis in this book, and Freud. So that'll be interesting. Madness Explained, Psychosis and Human Nature. I have heard a lot about this book. A lot of people on Bookstagram told me that this was a good book. I don't know exactly what it's going to be about. I believe it's just a general explanation of abnormal psychology, but I'll read it and we'll see how it goes. Madden America. The reviews on this book were mostly good. I believe this is about just maltreatment of patients in psychiatric institutions, especially dealing with schizophrenia, I believe. And this Robert Whitaker person has a lot of controversial takes. He has other books as well that are a bit controversial about the subjects. Tacitus, The Annals of Imperial Rome. So the Annals is just a form of history that was written back then, before people actually wrote history books. I believe this is what goes over Rome and its relation to the Germans. That's basically what this is all going to be about. Tacitus is, I don't know how to say this, Agricola and Germania. I think this is Britain and Germany. I think Agricola is in Britain, or close to Britain, I could be wrong. Tacitus has a lot of books. The Development of Personality by Carl Jung. I usually get 2 Jung books a month, but this time I only got 1 because I have a bunch that I need to read. But this is Jung's take on personality development. The Oxford Handbook of Epistemology. I got this not because I feel like nothing in here is going to be super new to me, because I've studied philosophy for a long time, but I want to get back into epistemology because I need to fix my book, and I need to add new chapters, so I want to get familiarized with this stuff again, just like a refresher. But the Oxford Handbooks are usually good, so that's why I chose this as opposed to a textbook or something. And then the last one that I got was this child psychopathology book. I've never studied child psychopathology, and since I'm going to go over the history of psychiatry and whatnot, I figured this would be a good add-on, and it was also really, really cheap. This was not an expensive book, and I think it's because there was, again, a newer edition. I think this is there's a 4th edition, I think this is the 3rd edition. Yeah, 3rd edition, and it was super cheap, so I decided to get it. Pretty big book, should be interesting to read. So, those are some of the new books I got. And with that being said, tschüss.